Hey guys, thanks so much for watching Extra Life and for supporting and donating. We really appreciate it. I'm here with Mark Rosewater, head designer of Magic the Gathering.
Hello.
We're going to be asking him some of the questions that you guys had for him via Extra Life. So we're really excited. Thanks so much for taking the time to
Oh, welcome. I'd love to help out the charity and answer some questions. So what do you got for me?
So the first one, we've asked everyone this question. We want to hear your
Okay.
answer to. If you could be any card in all of Magic, what card would you be?
Morrow.
It's an easy one for some.
I'm already a card. That's an easy question. So.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit of that story for people who might not be familiar?
Oh, so basically what happened was Mirage, I came here, when I first got in the building, we were working on alliances. So Mirage was the first set that I had worked on from the very beginning. Alliance was already going when I joined. And the Mirage team at the time was every single person in Magic R&D, which was me, Bill Rose, Mike Elliott, and William Jockish. There were 4 people. We were the development team. And during development, we killed a card, a green rare, and I suggested a card that I made before I ever got to Whizzards, which was Morrow, obviously. And it's a 2 green. It's star equal to the number of cards in your hand. And so what happened was I suggested the card, and Bill Rose at the time, we had this email system where Bill, because he's a gamer, had figured out the fewest number of letters he had to type to get each person's name. And for me, it turned out if you typed M-A, which was the first 2 letters of my first name, and R-O, which was the first 2 letters of my last name, that was the shortest way to get me. Mm-hmm. So he just tagged it M-A-R-O as his shorthand for Mark made this card. Okay. And then it went to the creative team, and they were like, oh, they knew it was referenced to me. They, oh, that's a kind of cool name. They left it. And so it got in, and I ended up writing the flavor text for it. So it ended up becoming my nickname. So obviously,
there you go.
And there's Morrow.
Easy question to open us off with.
Yep.
The next question we had was Kaladesh listed as an inventor block from the very first time it was on the 7-year plan?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Kaladesh started as we're going to Chandra's homeworld. And it's a steampunk kind of place. We did know when we started design, because we had done the sneak peek in Magic Origins, we knew a little bit about the world. Sean Main, who had designed Magic Origins, definitely, he and I had talked a little bit because we wanted to make sure that whatever the throw forward he was doing, that we could get it. And so they decided to play up the artifactness of it. We knew it was steampunk, we knew we had artifacts. Obviously, there were thopters, and we knew we had to sort of do some thopters. But it started a lot more of artifacty, steampunk plane, Chandra's homeworld. Feel like an inventor came later. That was not. I mean, it came early, but it wasn't. That when we put it on the in the 7-year plan, that wasn't. It was steampunk world, Chandra. Steampunk world obviously meant artifacts. Chandra's homeworld. That's all.
Cool.
Later on, when we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do, we did get to the idea of feel like an inventor pretty early on.
Sure.
In fact, I think in exploratory design, we stumbled upon that idea. So that happened early, but it wasn't what got us to make the thing in the first place. It came later.
Neat. A follow-up question to that, can you talk about the genesis of the idea for Kaladesh and how high concepts get onto the plan in the first place?
So the genesis of that thing was we knew we were trying to contrast Innistrad, obviously, both Battle for Zendikar and Innistrad were pretty downbeat stories. Both of them had a happy ending in the sense that the good guys won, kind of. But a lot of bad things happened along the way, and they were dark sets. And so the creative team really wanted a lighter set. And so when we looked at Zendikar, we kind of knew we were going for bright. And so what I wanted to do is say, okay, we know it's a world in which technology is kind of art. We know that the rock stars of the world are the inventors, that some of that creative sort of came about as we were trying to brainstorm what we could do. And really what drove us there was optimism. We wanted it to be not the sets that came before it. And I think the idea of optimism drove us to the technology of invention, and becoming an inventor sort of crystallized as we realized what we were trying to do. But that came about as we were sort of messing with the pieces and talking with creative, and high concept, I don't even think it was high concept, meaning it wasn't like we said, we're going to build a set, you feel like an inventor. That's not really where we started. It's what we did is we had a lot of pieces we were trying to get to, and when you clicked all the pieces together, that was the best answer to that. But that wasn't the mindset of where we started from. But it was when we started design, by the way, that was how design started. Exploratory design sort of hashed it out, and like by the time we got to design, okay, feel like an inventor was there from the beginning of design.
Gotcha.
But exploratory design is a lot when we sort of work with the creative team and find our footing and like get a sense of what we're going to do in the design. And so by the time we walked through, I'm like, okay, I know the goal, I knew the vision of the design. That's what exploratory design is, to sort of get an idea of what we're doing. So on day one of vision, I go, okay, team, here's what we're doing, here's the idea, here's the direction we're going in.
Awesome.
As far as high concept, when we talk about the 7-year plan or the future planning,
Sure.
it's a lot more about, do we have something we think we can do something with? Usually it's not high concept. Usually it's more like, here's a world idea we have. Like, Kaladesh was a lot more like, Magic's never done steampunk. Can we do steampunk? I mean, that's the high concept, if you will, is, oh, what if Magic did steampunk? That's more of what got us on the thing. Like, people like steampunk, we know artifacts is a popular theme. You know, we kind of at the point knew, I think we knew it was going to be Chandra's World. Maybe we didn't 100% know when we put it on schedule, but at some point soon we knew that.
Right, yeah,
Before I started exploratory design, that was a known quantity.
Got it.
But anyway, like, it's not so much high concepts as it is what are grounded ideas that are fertile worlds. Because when we pick a world, there's 2 questions we have to answer. One is, can we make a set? Mechanically, can we do something with it? And the second is, can we flavorfully do something? You know, can Jeremy and his team build an amazing world? You know, can my team build an amazing set? Can Jeremy build an amazing world? And so when we look at a world to put into the future, like, oh, well, do we think those 2 things are true? And we do a little bit of work. You know, we'll actually have little mini teams, and we'll try to make sure that the basics of that is true. And then when it's time to actually start the work, it's like, okay, steampunk optimism. What can I do with that?
Got it. Very cool. Another fan wanted to know, does Whizzers internally celebrate the release of each Magic set? If so, what is your most memorable Magic set celebration?
We do. It varies. I mean, we normally, for example, always have a pre-release, employee pre-release, and we make a big to-do, and they have fun things, and, you know, that's always fun. Often, for example, we have cakes from time to time, and like, haha, but usually that comes after the set is done well, and there's evidence it's done well. Like, ooh, we did good, let's have a cake. So there's a lot of, like, cake celebration. But the thing that people have to realize is, we don't treat something as a success until it is successful. Meaning, we have to take something, players have to respond to it has to come out, players have to actually play with it, then they have to enjoy it. So success isn't just we think we did well, a success is you tell us we did well. And so, as far as my favorite successes, I don't know. The ones I enjoy most are, like, Zendikar for me was so I pitched the idea of a land set, and like literally nobody liked the idea. I think Mike Turian liked the idea. Everybody, Mike was the one person who said, "Oh, I think that'd be good." And everyone else was like, "I like the land set," and they're like, "What else you got?" So the fact that we like went from like people just really like, honestly, that's not a good idea, let's get another idea, from really people not having any faith in it to having cake celebration, like, this is a huge success, that was some sweet cake, so.
Yeah, the cake of satisfaction. Another fan wanted to ask, can you share a lesson you learned from running the Great Design Search?
I learned a lot from running the Great Design Search. Probably the biggest thing I learned is how hard it is to find a good designer. Meaning that I don't think the average person has any idea what really we put. I mean, I know if you follow, you saw what we did, right. But really understanding what that entails, what they had to do, we're asking them to do crazy, crazy things. Like, nobody builds on the timetable we're asking of them.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like I compare it to Project Runway. Like, it's kind of like nobody actually, like, they build clothing in a timetable and nobody builds clothing. Or they build it out of materials that nobody builds clothes out of. It's a lot like that. Like, it was in some ways a reality show in that we were asking them to do crazy things. Sure. But from that, we learned a lot. And like I said, if you look at the 3 people that won in the first Great Designer Search, and the 3 people that won in the second Great Designer Search, all 6 of them are still in this building, still working at Whizzers. Yeah. I mean, like, they were all wonderful finds. They're all very talented people, and all of them right now are still contributing to making magic. So, you know, that, I learned a lot of lessons, though. I mean, I think that one of the things about doing it is just realizing sort of, like, in some level, it's when you are making other people do things that you realize all the stuff you're doing. It's very easy when you, like, oh, I'm doing this, and your head's down and not thinking about it. But as soon as you're like, okay, how do we have to test somebody else? You have to sort of think of all the processes, and it really illuminated things. Plus, doing the judging where you sit down and just analyze somebody else's work was really interesting, because a lot of times I would say something and then go, wow, am I doing that? Like, hey, you're doing this thing. And then like, oh, wow, I think I'm doing that too. Like you would do a lot of self-reflection where I'm like, wow, I really grilled that for doing this thing. And then I'm like, I think I'm doing that thing. I have to not do that thing. So it's very soul-searching.
Awesome.
And if people want, I say this all the time, if you want to learn how to design magic cards, going back and reading the Great Designer Search, both the first one and the second one, reading the whole thing, reading what they made, what the judges said, it is like, I feel that that's just like game design 101 or card design 101.
Yeah.
Like, go look at what we did. Like, we did it, we put them through the paces, we judged them. Like, it is very valuable. If you want to learn, there's little else we've ever done that is as educational as I think as those two things.
Yeah, I remember being a fan at the time and watching that process and just being blown away. I was like, maybe I want to. Oh my god, that's a lot. Whoa! And I was a little too young for the search at the time, but it was really cool to see all the amazing work that went into it, and it was really fun to read as well. Really
cool. Let me ask the question the follow-up question that I don't even know if it's there or not.
Oh,
but
sure.
Is when is Great Designer Search 3?
Yeah,
that's all the time.
On the tip of the tongue.
So I think one day we will do it. My joke is I have to forget how much work it is before I do the next one. I do think we'll do another one, but the problem is I don't want to do it until R&D's set up that if the person works out, we can keep them.
Totally.
Because I don't want to you win, you're here for 6 months, and then bye-bye.
Yeah,
so I do think eventually we'll get there. We've actually had preliminary talks about sort of set up. I mean, it didn't quite work out, but it's something that everyone realizes how successful it's been.
Sure.
Like I said, the fact that the top 3 finalists of both of them are still full-time working here, in big positions too, means like it was successful. So success breeds repetition, I say. So I do believe we'll do it again.
Awesome. Very exciting. Let's see. The next question we have is, what is the hardest part about designing a magic set?
What is the hardest part? The answer is it's not always the same thing.
Sure.
Like, I think people think like, oh, there's just a process. So what's the one part? And the answer is different sets have different hard parts.
Sure.
Like sometimes it's like, oh, I want to do something, but is there the space to do what you want to do? Sometimes it's like, oh, I know what I want to do, but like, can it match the creative correctly? Like, you have to make sure that it's not mismatching what the creative's doing. Sometimes it's like, oh, I have an idea, but there's different problems that come up, and that. It can be execution issues, it can be connectivity issues, it can be templating issues, it can be rules issues, It can be digital issues. There's all sorts of things that can pop up. And one of the things people don't realize is, let's say I make something, I make a mechanic. I love mechanic. Okay, it's really good. Okay, I first have to go to the creative team and say, okay, creatively, does this work? I have to go to the development team and say, developmentally, can we develop this? I have to go to the rules manager and say, are there rules that support this? I have to go to the editing team and go, can we template this? I have to go to the digital team. I'm like, okay, is this something that we can actually put in a digital form? Can Magic Online do this? I have to go to organized play. I'm like, okay, what happens if we do tournaments with this? I have to go to all these different teams because it's not just like oh, I have an idea, let's print it. It's like, okay, I have an idea. Okay, now I have to work with all these other teams to make sure that it's actually doable. And some sets, the sticky point is one team, and other points it's a different team.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not any of them. It's just like, can I generate something? Sometimes you have an idea and like, wow, I've tried all the when we did Golgari and original Ravnica, it took us 40 mechanics to find, ironically, Dredge, which was broken. But it took us a long time to find that, and we tried a lot of different things, and that sometimes certain areas are just really tough to do.
Totally, yeah. And I love that the ultimate solution was broken, but it generated a very decks that people are very effective.
It's a cool mechanic. I mean, it is broken, but it's a cool mechanic.
Very fun. The next question we have is, how much control do you have over a set when you are the lead designer?
Okay, so what lead designer means is that I'm in charge of the design portion, which is the early part of the set. I have a lot of control of big picture things and very little control of small things. Meaning, I don't, whether or not a particular card is in the set, I have almost no control on. By the time I hand off, so much change is going to happen. Not that I can't make cards or my team can't make cards that end up in the final product, but I have no control over that. But on the flip side, what the major mechanics are, what the theme is, kind of what the set's about, I have a lot of input there. Because my team is doing a lot of the early vision setting, big picture stuff. So, like if I say, for example, okay, it's steampunk world and it's feel like an inventor. Well, they're not going to change that down the road. It's going to have that feel to it. There's going to be an artifact component to it, you know. Probably if I make energy's going to end up in the set. So I have big picture control, but I am, like, if I want a particular, other than I can, you know, ask Eric or somebody saying, you know, I really want this card, please keep it in. I mean, I can kind of beg them, but there's no actual control I have, because when I'm overseeing the set, I'm handing over the file. I'm doing the first half. The second half's a completely different group, and they're going to change whatever they need to change to make the set good. So, I mean, I guess if I make a really awesome card, maybe they'll keep it. But, you know, I don't have any specific control over that.
Gotcha. Our next question is, if there was a design decision that you could go back and revisit, what would it be and why?
A design decision from all of time?
I guess all of time.
Wow, I have a lot of big mistakes. Like Mark, look back at all the mistakes you made.
Pick your favorite.
Okay, so I think a couple big ones. I was the one that suggested to make all the rare creatures in Champions Legends because I was not on the design team actually. I was on the development team, and one of my big things I kept saying, "What's the theme? What's the theme? What's the theme of the set?" And at one point I said, "It's about legends." I'm like, "Okay, but." How do you make sure there's enough legends to see the theme? And I'm like, okay, well, first off, every rare card's a legend, and we have uncommon legends, and you know, I'm trying to have enough that it can matter. And in retrospect, that was a mistake. I wouldn't have done that. In fact, I would have made the theme. I would have made that particular thing. I would have, I don't know, played up the Spirit War or something. I would have played up a different theme.
So why was making all the cards legends a mistake? What did it?
Well, the problem was that legends are the special thing, and people really have this affinity for legends. And the problem is you can't make every creature good. You can't. Right. And so what it meant was we took something that was kind of special. Like normally, hey, we don't make that many legends in that. We make sure they're all. I mean, they may not all be tournament playable, but they're all fun. Right. They're all exciting. They're meant for somewhere. Right. Like somewhere in some format should play them. But when everything's a legend, it just. You're going to make some sucky cards that happen to be legends, and sort of it diluted the coolness of legends.
Gotcha.
So that I think is the biggest mistake.
It's like Christmas every day, not as good as you think it is.
Another big mistake I made is when I set up Shadowmoor and Lorwyn, I really wanted there to be a big shake-up between the two, so I shifted, like it was a tribal set, and then I shifted the colors. So like elves were black-green in Lorwyn, but they were green-white in Shadowmoor. And the goblins were black-red and became red-green. So all of them I pivoted. I kept their major color the same, but their secondary color I switched. That was a mistake. I think what we should have done is found a way to show this shift without changing them out of their colors. Because people like, hey, I have my red-black goblin deck, and now there's green goblins. And like, you know, and like it's hard to play three-color. We didn't really help you play three. So that was a mistake. That was a big mistake, I think. I think a recent mistake, Battle for Zendikar. I made the decision to pick up where the story left off and make it about the battle between the Eldrazi and the Zendikari. I think the set ended up not being able to support that much Eldrazi. I wish I had found a way to, not that Eldrazi couldn't have played a portion of the story, but just not have a design where there's as many Eldrazi as there were. I think the set really didn't support that. Eldrazi are hard to do in large volume. They're weird. They don't like a few large Eldrazi is cool, but like a set full of Eldrazi, anyway, that was a mistake I made. I would have done that differently. There's a lot of mistakes. I mean,
well, I think we're also always our own worst critic too, right? Like of looking at things that we're like, well, there's always things that since you've done a thing, you've learned and you feel like you can go back and improve, right? So
yeah, I mean, I don't mind making mistakes. I think making mistakes are an important part of the process, and I think a lot, like for example, one of the sets I learned the most on was Odyssey. Where I experimented with this idea of let's take card advantage and turn it on its ear. Like card advantage isn't good. Ooh, all the spikes in the world will go, what's going on? You know, and the problem was I just made a set that while the spikes actually did enjoy it, everybody else were like, I don't want to throw away all my cards. I like giving my cards. I don't want to throw them away. You know, and it just wasn't a fun experience for them. But I learned a lot. Like Odyssey, as far as like my growth as a designer, was one of the sets I learned the most from. Because like I made some big mistakes in that, you know, I really think mistakes are where you learn. That, you know, when you succeed at something, it just says, that's good, do that again. And it just sort of, you know, breeds repetition. But mistakes, they make you think. They make it like, you have to be introspective and go, okay, I don't want to do that again. What did I do wrong? And the thing is, I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I make tons of mistakes, but I feel like I try to learn from the mistakes. Like, to me, the biggest mistake is making the same mistake.
Right.
You know, that if you make a mistake and learn from it, and then not make the mistake again, I feel that mistake did good work. And hey, there's a lot of Magic. I would say that most of the best cards of Magic on some level were mistakes. Like you go look at the vintage, restricted list.
Right.
Like, it's a list of Magic mistakes that define this format. So I mean, I don't think mistakes are necessarily bad, and I think that I'm not upset that we make mistakes. I just want to make sure that we learn from them and don't repeat them. So
that's really cool. Yeah.
Next question.
All right, let's see. The next question from another donor was, which of the cards that was created by the Magic Invitational are you happiest with the design and why? So for those people who aren't familiar, Magic Invitational, people who won those had an opportunity to submit a design and get a card made. So
right, the way it would work is if you won the Invitational, you could turn in a card, and then we would work with you to tweak it to make it printable. Some people turned in cards, and the card they ended up with was nothing at all what they turned in. Some people turned in cards, and the finished card is, in spinning distance of what they turned in. The two cards that worked out the best in my mind was Chris Bakula's Meddling Mage and Bob's what's it called?
Dark Confidant?
Yeah, Bob's Dark Confidant.
Yeah.
And Bob Marr Jr.
Yeah.
Those are the two that just, I don't know, from a design standpoint, they ended up just being really, really neat cards.
Yeah.
Meddling Mage is a creature that when you play it, you name a spell, and then while that creature's in play, that spell can't be played. And it was a really interesting control card that you could, and it allowed a lot of interesting decisions. Oh, what's my opponent doing, and how can I mess with them? And the Dark Confidant is a small creature that every turn you get to draw a free card off the top of your library, but you lose life equal to its converted mana cost. And so it's a great black card, like power, but at a cost. And sometimes the card kills you. That's like a good black card. Where sometimes you're like, okay, I better kill this creature. I don't want to draw any more cards. I can't afford it. Those are the two that I think turned out overall the best. Well, most of the cards turned out pretty well. We tried really hard to make cool cards and you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of fun cards that showed up. And in fact, I think all but a handful, all but 2 or 3 have shown up in finals of Pro Tours. So they were good cards. So we definitely, I enjoyed the prize. What happened was, originally when I made the Invitational, we didn't have much budget. Originally it was a promotional event done for the Duelists. It was called the Duelist Invitational.
Okay.
And so the Duelists funded it. It was all the Duelist budget.
Wow.
And we didn't have a lot of money for a budget. So I was like, okay, it's the All-Star game. I'm like, I don't have money for a prize. I can't offer the money. Can I do something that's cool? In fact, going back to Morrow, we talked about it a little bit ago, I really liked when Morrow got made, how it made me feel like part of me was in the game. It felt with this idea I'm part of the game that I love. And I thought that was a neat prize.
Sure.
And in fact, Chris Bakula, who I mentioned Meddling Mage, he actually said at one point that of everything he won, of all the things he won in Magic, that the thing that looking back in time, the thing that meant the most to him was Meddling Mage.
Oh,
that the
awesome.
sort of the same sort of feeling of wow, I love this game. It's a big part of my life, and I've become part of the game. That's really cool. So
yeah.
People ask all the time, will we ever do that again? Could the world champion do something like that again? I don't know. In some level, the reason it was so special was it was the thing, and it's kind of weird when there's all this stuff you're the world champion and there's a giant prize purse and there's all this stuff that the card, I don't know, it feels sort of tacked on rather than being the focus.
Yeah.
So maybe one day we'll do it, but I don't think it's gonna be the world champion.
That's fair. Yeah, that's pretty cool. How many Magic cards do you own is the next question. And also, what are some of the ones you're most proud of?
I own a lot of Magic cards. I have a room in my house that's it's hard to get in the room. It's just Magic cards. The ones I own, I own 3 special cards. I have to remember all their names. So Richard made a card when his daughter was born, and then he made a different card when his son was born, and recently when he got married, he made a card. And not just made them, but printed them and handed them out. And I have all those framed at home, and those are really cool.
Yeah.
And those are kind of special, not your run-of-the-mill Magic card. Those are the kind of things that I appreciate more, or not. It's just cards that be over and above, and for example, I have a card by my desk that is this giant Japanese poison card, a poison token,
Oh.
a poison counter that's like this big. And the funny thing is, like, I was at Worlds in Japan, and Richard Garfield and I had this giant match. We were playing with giant cards, and we had people come to the audience, and they, each card would be played by a person, and it was this giant battle, and it took an hour, and like I ended up killing him, and that was the final poison that I gave him to win the game. And obviously, poison counters meant a lot to me. It took me 14 years to get poison back in the game. So that's the kind of thing where it's this weird giant Japanese poison token, but it means a lot to me just because it has, I don't know. I think my favorite cards are literally individual things that have some like emotional, meaning to me. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Let's see. Our next question is: when Magic revisits a world, how do you balance revisiting the explored parts of the world while introducing new features of that world?
So so when you go back, we go back to a world. So one of the things is this is the balance you need. You want enough of the world that they recognize that, hey, yay, I'm going back to a world I love. So we need something.
Right.
Like we went back to, for example, Zendikar, we made sure to have landfall. Right. And a land theme, We went back to Innistrad, we made sure we had double-faced cards, and we had the tribal stuff that people expected. We went back to Ravnica, obviously, we had the guilds, there's just things that, I don't think we went back to Zendikar and go, Lange man. People, that's not what people love. So you want to have enough of it that it's that. But if you do too much, if I just repeat everything we did before, then it's not a new thing. You're not re-exploring. So normally what I try to do is I want maybe a third to be about things that you've seen before and about 2/3 to be new things. But here's what I would say. A third is things that you've seen before exactly that brought back. A third, thematically feels like it could have been in the first set, like it could have just been in the first set but you didn't do it, and a third be like, no, this is this set, not the first set. So gotcha. I want a little bit of actually it was in the first set, or a mechanic from the first set, a little bit like it has the feel like it could have been although it's new, and a little bit of, okay, we're going someplace that we wouldn't have gone before. This set, this block is not exactly that block. There's some new space we're exploring.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's a pretty neat ratio. The next question we have is, what does it take for a mechanic to be used continually in Magic rather than just an expansion or two? So how do these get to be evergreen?
So how do you make a mechanic evergreen? So there's actually two different things. Right? We call evergreen mechanics and what we call deciduous mechanics. So an evergreen mechanics like flying or first strike or trample, it's like every set has it. Like if you're an evergreen mechanic, every once in a blue moon, we'll not have an evergreen mechanic if it somehow causes problems with the mechanics of that set. So. Okay. We will occasionally leave an evergreen mechanic out, but pretty much an evergreen mechanic means, look, you can expect that mechanic in every set. Every block pretty much is going to have that mechanic. A deciduous mechanic means it's a mechanic we can use anytime we want, but we don't use it all the time. Hybrid is a really good example. Any block that wants hybrid mana can use it, but not every block needs hybrid mana. And so we use hybrid mana when it makes sense, but we use hybrid mana only where it makes sense. Every set doesn't have it. And so deciduous things are something that we can use from time to time. So how do you become either evergreen mechanic or deciduous mechanic? And the answer is that you have to offer something to Magic at large. So for example, the most recent mechanic that sort of migrated to evergreen status was Prowess. Right. We made it as the Jeskai mechanic in Construct here. It played really well, and it answered a problem that we've been having in normal Magic, which is blue really was missing a combat mechanic, and blue-red had no overlap. Right. And so it was just like, oh, wow, if we put this in blue and red, primary blue, secondary red, we give blue a nice sort of combat-oriented mechanic, but it feels very blue. It has a sneakiness to it. It's very spell-oriented. Okay, it feels really blue, but it's combat-oriented. Okay, blue needed that. And, blue-red needed an overlap. Well, we put secondary red. Now we have the blue-red overlap. So, it just fit a need we had. So to become an evergreen mechanic, A, you have to play really well. B, you have to have design space, enough design space that we can make a lot of you. Right. And C, you have to kind of fill a void of something we need in sort of normal Magic. But if you do those three things, then you have a chance. Deciduous means we like you, but not quite as often. But there are other things, deciduous kind of means wow, this is awesome. We want Magic to regularly have access to this, but maybe not every world will have it.
Cool. Yeah. All right, one more question, or a couple more questions coming towards the end here, though. Let's see. Is there a funny story that you can share with us around playtesting a card or mechanic? What happened?
Okay, so this is my story. I have a lot of funny stories. But so I'm playing Devin Lowe, who's a designer from long ago, and we were play testing Time Spiral. Devin and I were both on the Time Spiral design team. I led Time Spiral design team. Or no, I didn't. Brian Timpton led the Time Spiral. I was on the team. I didn't lead it. But anyway, that set had the bonus sheet, the time shifted cards.
Right.
And so it had cards from Magic's past.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so Aaron Forsyth was in charge of keeping that list. And so he was constantly fiddling with it. So, I mean, early on, the idea was the cards didn't have to be standard legal, so he did all sorts of crazy things. But eventually, we decided, it's confusing. These 14 cards in the pack, you can't play in standard. This one you can. But then, okay, we'll just make them all standard legal. So then he had to shift it. But he was constantly changing the list. There were 121 cards on the sheet, so he was constantly. So I really had no idea. I would look at it like once a week, but I had no idea what was on the list. So I'm playing with Devin, and there's a mechanic that didn't make it in the set, but we were playing with that was double tap essentially. The idea was you could tap something, but while tapped, you could tap it again and make it double tapped.
Whoa.
And the idea is if you were double tapped and you untapped, you went to single untapped. We would turn the card upside down. But the idea was you could sort of tap it while tapped, and then it would only untap one incarnation. So like if I double tapped it, I could tap it and then again in the turn tap it again, but then it would take 2 turns to get back to the total untap state. In one turn it would untap halfway and I could tap it, but I couldn't double tap it. That makes sense. I don't know.
I think
okay.
So. Yeah.
So anyway, I had a card that I could name a card and look at his hand to get a card out of his hand, sort of like
Cabal Therapy.
Like Cabal Therapy.
Yeah.
And so the idea was, the reason it was a double tap card is I name a card and then you show me your hand. If I get it, you have to discard it. Well, I'm just guessing the first time, right? But the second time you use it, I just looked at your hand. Right. So the idea is, the reason it was a double tap card is essentially it's coercion. The first time it's Cabal Therapy, and the second time it's coercion, I know your hand. So all I needed to do was, I think he had 1 card in his hand. So all I really needed to do was, I knew I was going to get the card out of his hand. Like I knew that's what I was going to do. I was going to tap it once, I get a look at his hand. So the first time I'm naming it, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can name anything.
So I can name anything. So I'm just screwing around, and I literally am just naming a card from Magic. Okay? So I say Dakin Blackblade.
Okay.
Okay? Oh no, I'm sorry. I said Solkanar the Swamp King. I said Solkanar the Swamp King.
Okay.
And then he goes, got it! Like I didn't know it was on the sheet. Aaron had put it on. I didn't even know it was in the set. I just blindly named a card of all of Magic at the time, 10,000 cards. Jeez. And I hit it. And I was so excited, I did a lap around the pit. I was like, ah! The chances of me hitting that card were infinitesimal.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just remember I don't know, it was just one of those moments where both of us were even more so, I think maybe Devin thought maybe I knew it, I at least knew the bonus sheet, so I knew there was a chance of being it. But I was I was just naming a card out of Magic. I had no idea it could possibly be in his hand. So when he said you got it, I was just like, what? So anyway, that's my favorite story of just crazy antics playtesting.
That is pretty awesome. All right, we've got 2 more questions here, and then we're gonna move back to the guys playing the game here at Extra Life. So our question is, if you weren't a game designer or a writer, what would you be doing instead?
What would I be doing? That's a fine question. Because my backup was I'd be a writer.
Right.
And he took that away.
Take it away.
What would I be doing? I'm fascinated by social media. Maybe I would be messing around. I went to VidCon this year.
Oh, fun.
My daughter earned a trip to VidCon,
awesome.
So I chaperoned her.
Nice.
And I think if I could spend some time doing video stuff or making content for online, that seems very fun. I made a comment video for Blog Talk Live this summer. I did 2 panels, one at San Diego Comic-Con and one at PAX.
Right.
And I really wanted to make a little comedy film. So I worked with my daughter who shot, directed, and edited it. And the 2 of us, we made this little comedy film, and I was really proud of it. I thought it was just, I like the end result. And so it's the kind of thing where if I had more time, I don't know. That's what the thing I would do. I'm doing social media stuff, I think. That's what I would do.
I love it. I got to see that video. It was very funny. So I enjoyed it.
Okay.
All right, this is our last question. Final question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite game show, and how would you tweak its design?
What is my favorite game show? Okay, this is not my favorite game show.
Okay.
But it's a game show that I want to tweak.
Okay.
So my wife and I watch Big Brother, which is a reality show.
Okay, I'm going to pause real quick. Do you
Okay.
oftentimes watch game shows and want to tweak things and be like, oh, this rule could be improved.
I do that more in normal games than I do with game shows.
Okay.
But there's some. I mean, one of the things I always explain is that I can't look at games and not have a critical eye.
Sure.
So like. One of my problems is when I read instructions for new games, I just want to make changes. And my rule is I try to play the game the way they instruct me the first time. Like once I play it once, then I'll change it. But like okay, let me like they obviously play tested. Let me see what they mean.
Sure.
But the part of me just I'll read instructions. Really, that's I'll read it again. So. But
that's awesome.
But I mean I definitely have this feeling, like I don't watch that many game shows regularly, and the few I watch are like, they've been on for like Jeopardy or something, where like, I'm sure how I'm improving Jeopardy, So Big Brother is a reality show that my wife and I watch, and one of my pet peeves about the show is that people make promises all the time, they don't keep them.
Oh, sure.
And it drives me insane, because it's like, I don't know what making promises means. There's no consequence for it. So the thing I would love to do, if they let me on Big Brother for a thing, I would love to make the thing I call the contract. Which is, you say, okay, there's an official thing, you face the camera or whatever, and you both promise to do something, and then you are obligated, you get kicked off the show. If you don't follow through on that, you lose. So you're now, don't do this unless you mean it, but when you make a promise, you've signed a contract, now you're obligated. Now that's interesting. You gotta be careful what you promise, and you can promise anything, any contract. I'll promise this, you promise that, okay, we signed the contract, now I gotta live up to my promise. And I think if you make interesting promises, I think there'd be, I like the idea that people then have to follow through on what they say. I hate the, I promised you, and then I'm not keeping that promise. I don't know. That to me is, the gamer in me is like, that's just a broken system. So that's what I would choose.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mark, for taking the time and for answering all these awesome questions. Thank you guys for asking all these awesome questions.
And thank you for donating money to a good cause.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for your support. Enjoy the rest of Extra Life. Mark and I are going to head on out of here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.